an online action RPG focused on cooperative gameplay. Players work together to ascend a massive tower, battling enemies using a variety of weapons and abilities. However, the game was poorly received due to its lackluster combat mechanics, uninspired level design, and a low player count, leading to its eventual shutdown despite likely having decent graphics. This is a multiplayer online action RPG where you pilot customizable exosuits called javelins. The gameplay involves flying around large open environments, completing missions, and engaging in combat against various enemies. You collect loot to upgrade your javelin. However, the game suffered from a lack of engaging content, repetitive missions, numerous technical bugs, and a difficult development process, leading to its commercial failure despite its potential visual appeal. You play as Nier on a quest to save his daughter from a deadly disease. The gameplay is an action RPG with a mix of hack-and-slash combat, magic spells, and even some bullet hell elements. You'll explore various environments and complete side quests. However, the environments were considered lifeless, the lead character bland, and the forced meshing of different gameplay styles felt unpolished, making the overall experience a chore for some despite the praised story. Set in 1960s New Orleans, you play as Lincoln Clay seeking revenge against the Mafia. The gameplay involves open-world exploration, driving period-accurate cars, engaging in gunfights, and using stealth tactics to take down enemy operations. While praised for its atmosphere and narrative, the gameplay was heavily criticized for its repetitive mission structure, where you repeatedly take over rackets in a similar fashion, leading to a monotonous experience despite the strong presentation. This game blends real-time strategy with role-playing elements. You command armies from a strategic map and can also transform into a powerful dragon to directly engage in battles. You also engage in political marriages and make decisions that affect your empire. However, the RTS element was considered watered down and the dragon transformation mechanic wasn't utilized to its full potential, leaving the gameplay feeling somewhat disjointed. Set in Victorian London, you play as twin assassins Jacob and Evie Fry. The gameplay involves open-world exploration, stealth, free-running across rooftops, and combat using various weapons and gadgets. You can switch between the twins, each with their own skill trees. While the graphics were praised, some players found the core gameplay mechanics, particularly the mission structure and combat, to be repetitive and uninspired compared to previous entries in the series. This fighting game features characters from various popular manga series. The gameplay involves 3v3 tag team battles in 3D arenas. Each character has unique special moves and abilities inspired by their respective series. However, the combat system was criticized for being simplistic and unbalanced, lacking the depth and complexity found in other popular fighting games. The story mode was also poorly received. This is a looter splasher, where you play as a knight clad in powerful armor, focused on melee combat. The gameplay revolves around fighting enemies using various weapons and special abilities, collecting loot to upgrade your gear, and progressing through a fantasy world. However, the core gameplay loop was criticized for being repetitive and lacking in strategic depth. Despite its visually impressive graphics, many players found the combat unengaging and the loot system unrewarding. This handheld Call of Duty title offers a first-person shooter experience with a single-player campaign and multiplayer modes. The gameplay is similar to the console versions with fast-paced shooting and a focus on action. However, the single-player campaign was very short and lacked depth, and the multiplayer experience suffered from technical issues and a small player base. Despite looking visually similar to the main series, the gameplay felt bland and uninspired to many players. This action horror game features multiple playable characters and intertwining storylines. The gameplay emphasizes third-person shooting against zombies and other mutated creatures. Each campaign has unique gameplay elements, but overall, it focuses on action, set pieces, and quick-time events. While the environments and monster designs were visually impressive, the game was criticized for moving away from the series' survival horror roots, lacking genuine scares, and featuring an overabundance of action and quick-time events that many fans found disappointing. You play as Arthur Morgan, an outlaw in the American West. The gameplay is a vast open-world experience with a focus on realism. You'll spend time riding your horse across detailed landscapes, engaging in gunfights, hunting animals, interacting with a large cast of characters, and completing a variety of missions. However, some players found the game's pace to be slow and deliberate, with animations for even simple actions feeling lengthy. The shooting mechanics, while realistic, were also criticized by some as being less fluid than other modern shooters. This is a remake of the original Mafia, set in the 1930s. The gameplay involves driving classic cars, engaging in third-person shooting, and following a narrative-driven story. Missions often involve driving to locations, participating in gunfights, and sometimes engaging in melee combat. While praised for its updated graphics and story, some players found the core gameplay, particularly the driving and shooting mechanics, to be clunky or frustrating, with one specific race mission being a major point of contention. You take on the role of Batgirl, Nightwing, Robin, or Red Hood in a Gotham City following Batman's death. The gameplay involves open-world exploration, combat against criminals, and solving mysteries. Each character has unique abilities and combat styles. You can traverse the city using gadgets like grappling hooks and the bat sight. However, the city was criticized for feeling empty, and the Gambit, while offering variety, could feel somewhat repetitive and lacked the fluidity of the Arkham series. Technical issues also plagued the game at launch. As Jacob Lee, you're trapped in a maximum security prison on Jupiter's moon Callisto, fighting grotesque creatures. The gameplay focuses on brutal melee combat, utilizing a gravity weapon to manipulate enemies and the environment. You'll need to manage limited resources like ammunition and health packs while exploring dark and claustrophobic environments. However, the combat was criticized for being clunky and repetitive, with a heavy reliance on dodging and quick-time events. The short playtime and numerous technical issues further detracted from the experience. This game blends third-person shooting with stealth and survival elements. You play as one of three characters in a war-torn city, scavenging for resources and trying to avoid or engage enemy soldiers and mechs. Stealth is often emphasized due to limited ammunition and tough enemies. You can craft items and set traps to aid your survival. However, the game was heavily criticized for its clunky controls, poor AI, and frustrating difficulty, making the intended blend of genres feel disjointed and unpleasant for many players. You play as Knack, a creature made of ancient relics who can change size by collecting more relics. The gameplay involves simple combat against goblins and other enemies, utilizing basic punches and dodges. There are also platforming sections where you need to navigate environments by jumping and using Knack's size-changing abilities to solve puzzles. However, the gameplay was often criticized for being repetitive and lacking in strategic depth, with poor controls making platforming frustrating for many players. Players experience life as a student at Hogwarts in the late 1800s, attending classes, exploring the castle and surrounding areas, casting spells and engaging in combat. While visually stunning and a celebration of the Harry Potter universe, the game had flaws revolving around the story, voice performances, and a lack of deep player immersion beyond the initial novelty. Set in the world of Avatar, you play as a Na'vi exploring the western frontier of Pandora. The gameplay involves first-person exploration, using Na'vi weapons and abilities, and engaging in combat against RDA forces. Despite its beautiful graphics, the game was criticized for its dated open-world design, repetitive gameplay loops, and a poor main story. As Senua, a picked warrior, you embark on a dark and atmospheric journey, exploring themes of mental health. The gameplay involves puzzle solving and visceral combat. While praised as a visual masterpiece, the gameplay and story were described as lacking depth and inspiration by some critics. Marketed as an open-world survival MMO, this game was highly anticipated but was ultimately considered a failure upon release. Players explored a post-apocalyptic world, scavenging for resources and fighting zombies and other players. However, the game was criticized for lacking core features, feeling unfinished and not living up to its promises, suggesting a significant disconnect between its visual marketing and the actual gameplay experience. Players control Gollum in this stealth-based action-venture game. The gameplay focuses on sneaking past enemies, platforming, and making choices that influence Gollum's personality. However, the game was poorly received due to its clunky controls, uninspired gameplay mechanics, and technical issues, failing to deliver on its potential despite the interesting premise. This multiplayer first-person shooter features large-scale battles with a focus on futuristic warfare. Players can use various vehicles, gadgets, and specialist characters with unique abilities. However, the game was criticized for a lack of content at launch, numerous bugs, and design choices that alienated longtime fans of the series. Set in a futuristic open world, you play as V, a mercenary caught up in a conspiracy. The gameplay involves first-person exploration, shooting, hacking, and character customization. Despite its impressive visuals, the game was notorious for its buggy launch, numerous performance issues, and unfulfilled gameplay promises, leading to significant player disappointment.